So let's just jump in. This is our agenda, your startup checklist. We'll talk about the legal forms of business. We'll talk about licenses and permits that you need to obtain. We'll take a look at tax requirements. We'll talk a little bit about developing a record keeping system, and then about determining your banking, insurance, and personnel needs. Now, this is the time for me to tell you there's a few things we don't do at the ASBTDC. We do not give legal advice. So I'm not going to tell you which type of entity you should be. Okay, I'm going to give you information on the different types of businesses that there are in the state of Arkansas that are the most common for a small business. The other thing we don't do is we don't give tax advice. We're not CPAs, we're not licensed accountants, and so therefore I won't give you any tax advice. But I'll point you in the direction of some of the tax items that you need to consider when starting your small business. We always tell people it's good to have a CPA or some type of a bookkeeper in your toolbox. So make sure that you're looking at finding one for your business. And the same with an attorney. And you may have a divorce attorney, an adoption attorney. You may have a attorney who's helped you with land matters. You can, if you don't know of a business attorney, you can ask that attorney to refer you. We don't keep a list of attorneys that we recommend. And of course, not everyone on this webinar is even in the state of Arkansas, perhaps. So we certainly wouldn't have any recommendations for another state. But we don't keep anything like that. But that's how I would suggest going about finding. Ask around, ask your banker. A lot of times a banker knows of a good reputable small business attorney because that's the world they live in. So that would be my suggestion for finding an attorney. Okay, well, let's jump right in. Well, I'm having trouble advancing this, but we're going to get there. Okay, so this is the first QR code that I want to share with you. The Secretary of State, they've got several resources available on their website, and one of these is this Doing Business in Arkansas booklet. Now, this booklet has a lot of information in it, and they have tried to do it in a easy to understand format. It's going to cover things like choosing an entity type, reserving and filing your corporate name, avoiding common problems with document filings, your corporate fee schedule, because when you register things with them, there are fees associated with it. And then domestic entities compared to foreign entities, and then trademarks and service marks. And we're not going to talk about that one a lot today. As a matter of fact, we're not going to refer to it, but just know that that information is in there. My one thing I'll say about trademarks and service marks is I would highly recommend you work with an attorney on those items. And they may not always be as necessary or as valuable as you may think they are. One of the things I've kind of been told is, if you've got a wonderful looking logo, all someone has to do is just change it just a little bit and then they can use it and claim it. So is that really the best investment of your money to try to get something like that trademarked? So again, I would certainly talk to an attorney before I started shelling out any money to do any of those activities there. So the legal forms of business. Don't automatically assume you need to incorporate just because you're going into business. You need to think about what's right for you. So let's start with a sole proprietorship. This is a business with one owner, and it's not separate from its owner. It's like a pass-through entity, meaning that all the income and expenses pass through to and are filed as part of the owner's personal tax return. Owners, they have no tax-free fringe benefits, such as a company-funded employee benefit plan, anything like this. So it's basically the business and the entrepreneur are one and the same. Limited liability company. Now, these are kind of hybrid entities, and it combines some of the favorable aspects of a partnership and a corporation. It features that pass-through taxation of the partnership and limited liability of the corporation, and there's generally no company-funded benefits either. There are some protections with an LLC of personal assets that might be of interest to you. Protecting your personal assets as a sole proprietor, you're probably going to have to look at having a really big insurance policy to try to make sure you don't lose your personal items. But with an LLC, it affords you some of those protections. Now that is provided you keep your money separate. You cannot have all your money going through the same account. You need to have a account set up for the LLC and an account set up for your personal business. And out of the LLC, you don't pay to buy groceries, you don't get your hair done, you don't, you don't pay for your kids' soccer cleats out of that. You would pay for that out of the personal fund. The same token, out of the personal fund, you don't pay for graphic design for the business, and you don't pay for gas to go into the company car. Instead, you transfer those funds over to the pot that they need to come out of. So if you need some money for household expenses, you're taking a withdrawal out of that LLC, you're moving it over to your personal account as an owner's withdrawal, and then you're spending out of there. Now, if that sounds kind of complicated to you, it kind of is. And this is why I suggest that you have a CPA or bookkeeper involved. They will guide you on those matters. But I don't want you thinking that you can just go set up an LLC and you'll be protected. There's more to it. And that's why you need the professionals like your accountants and attorneys involved. So let's talk about a partnership. Now, I heard something interesting last night on a program I listened to, and he does some business advising. That's why I was listening to him. It's always good to kind of do that continuing education, stay ahead of the curve. And he made the comment that in all his years of working with small businesses and advising small businesses, that he had never known of a partnership to last 10 years. He said they're at one place on day one, and it's usually in short order that one partner or the other is going a different direction. So I just thought I would throw that little bit of caution to you. He said, in his opinion, it was better for one to be the owner and the other one to work for that person as an employee, and they could have however they want to structure compensation to make it fair. He had seen that model work better than a partnership. So you can take that for what it's worth. It was his opinion. But here's what a partnership is. It's two or more owners. One partner can be held liable for the acts of the other partner. It's also a pass-through entity, meaning it does not pay its own income tax. However, it does file an informational tax return. Again, this is that tax information that you would need to get with an accountant to make sure you've got everything set up and flowing correctly to stay in compliance with tax laws. Then you've got an S corporation. It's taxed like a partnership or a pass-through entity, and there can be some advantages to a S corporation when it comes to taxes owed. Again, that can change from year to year depending on what the IRS, what rules they put out. So that's a conversation to have with your CPA. Then there's a C corporation. Now, this is where a group of entrepreneurs with its own separate legal entity, it protects its owners by absorbing the liability, so the corporation gets sued and not the owners. Articles of incorporation are filed with the state. The owners are shareholders, and they may participate in company-funded employee benefit plans. So this is kind of as you're getting a little bigger. Owners are personally protected from lawsuits and are generally not liable to settle company obligations unless they have put up personal collateral to secure a debt. It doesn't prevent that from being taken in the event of a default on a loan. Additional benefit, you've got the name protection within the state. That's also a benefit of an LLC and an S Corp. So if you really like your name, maybe you don't want to be a sole proprietorship because the name is not protected as a sole proprietorship, just to let you know that. B corporation. These are not as common. So let me explain a little bit about what a B Corp is. Benefit corporations are for-profit companies that want to consider additional stakeholders, morals, or mission in addition to making a profit. Now, one that we've got in the state, well, one that most people know of is the Bob's Shoe Company, or at least they were at one time, where if you buy a pair of shoes, they would in turn buy a pair of shoes for children in a third world country or something like that. So that is an example of a B Corp. A benefit corporation status, it only affects the requirements of corporate purpose, accountability, and transparency, but everything else regarding corporation law and tax law, it remains the same. So, besides just trying to highlight, if you think it's a big marketing advantage that your customers know that when they buy one thing that you're doing something that's of the public good, with part of those profits, and you want that to be part of your marketing strategy, then there may not be a lot of advantage to exploring that B Corp. Again, you and your attorney have to decide what's best for you. That's not our role. That's not where we come in. They're going to look at all those details, have those discussions with you. And just remember, you pay taxes and face legal implications from the time you set up the legal entity, regardless of when you start making money. Okay. So a lot of people rush out and they get this paperwork done and they're not ready to actually get started. The decision needs to be made, but work with your accountant or your attorney that's working with you on this to determine when do I really need to get the paperwork filed, because timing can be very important in this regard. Okay, so let's talk about registering your business name and incorporating your business where you do it. Articles of incorporation are filed with the Secretary of State if the business is an LLC, an S Corp, C Corp, same with a B Corp. You use a doing business as or a DBA certificate from the county clerk's office if the business isn't incorporated. So if you're a sole proprietorship and you want to accept checks only in your name, then you don't have to do any of this paperwork unless the bank asks you for it when you go in to set up an account. So if the bank asks you for it, you head up to the county clerk's office and get the certificate filed there. It's a once in a lifetime thing. You do it once and it's done. The same with a partnership. Now, if you are a sole proprietorship and you want to accept checks in the name of your business. So I'm Janelle Reeves. I've got a lawn mowing service and I want people to make the check out to Reeves Landscaping. Then I'm going to need to get this DBA certificate from the county clerk's office and take it to the bank, or they're not going to be able to honor checks made out to Reeves Landscaping. So it's important when it comes to your banking. This is a quick process. You typically go in and they take care of you right on the spot. It varies from county to county. Down here in our part of the country, it's about $25, something like that is what's common. And you don't have to pay any type of tax year over year like you will with something filed with the Secretary of State. One of the things that's key when you start working with the Secretary of State, and it's really key if you're going to do a DBA, is your name, the name that you want to use, is it already being used? So let's go back to the Reeves Landscaping example. If I decide, all right, I'm going to be a sole proprietorship, but I want to file with the county clerk's office because I want it to be able to get checks come in to Reeves Landscaping. I want them to know me as that, not by my first name. And I go in and I do all that paperwork and I start getting these checks and everything's going great. And then all of a sudden I get this letter in the mail and it says, you have to quit using Reeves Landscaping because there's a Reeves Landscaping that is registered in the state as a limited liability company. It may be up in Jonesboro. It may be in Central Arkansas. It doesn't matter where it is. If they find out I'm using the name that's already been registered with the Secretary of State, I have to change my name. So here's the website where you can go and look it up. And let's go to the next screen. And you can see there's your QR code. And here's what the screen looks like. Well, you'll know you're at the right spot if you see this screen pop up. It's going to say searching corporations, cooperatives, banks, and insurance company. And what you would do, you see where it says enter either name. I would put Reeves Landscaping right there. Go down to the bottom, click search, and see what pops up. So I'm telling you that because you don't have to fill out all of these fields to be able to do the search. The safest way, and the state even encourages you to do this, is to call them. If you call them, they do probably, I'm guessing, maybe a more extensive search than this one is, just to give you a green light. If you try to register one with them that's already in the system, it will kick your registration back out. They're not going to charge you an extra fee for that, but it will delay the amount of time it takes you to get that LLC or other paperwork back. All right. So you want to make sure that You're not using a name that is already taken by someone else. You would hate to start and get a good image built of Reeves Landscaping, and then 6 months in, I've got to change it to um, tree and shrub landscaping, because that sounds like a whole different business. But if I can't use my last name because it's already used, then I've got to come up with something. And so you're basically kind of starting over from square one with any marketing you've done to try to attract in non-customers. Okay. So that name availability, distinguishable names, a corporate name that's different from any other name, any other entity, or its filing is distinguishable. There's very little differences that are allowed. Um, if one person spells cuts Kuts and someone else spells it Cutz, it's still the word cuts. And that's why calling the Secretary of State instead of just doing a search on this website can be helpful to you. Because when you're searching by name, if you put in Cuts, it's not going to pull up someone who's spelling it Kutz. Okay, so that's the advantage to go ahead and call on them. Now there is a little thing about reserving a name. If you remember, I said don't follow that paperwork too soon. You want your timing to be right. But let's say you've got a name and you want to hang on to it. You can reserve the name. It's not for a long period of time. It's for only 120 days. Okay, so a corporate name may be reserved prior to incorporation for a period of 120 days when the Secretary of State's office receives the correct filing fee and the proper name reservation forms. The forms are available for electronic filing or downloading from the Secretary of State's website. You can, if you're in the Central Arkansas area and you want to go visit their offices there in downtown Little Rock, they should be able to get those forms for you in person. Name reservations filed under the Corporate Act are non-renewable. So you can't just keep doing it over and over and over and hold it for longer than that 120 days. Now, names registered or reserved under the LLC and LP Acts, they do have a one-time renewal period. So the corporate ones, you're not going to be able to renew, but the ones under the LLC and the partnership ones could be renewed for one time. When a corporate name's been reserved and the right to that name is transferred in writing during the 120-day period, it can only be reserved for the balance of time remaining on the original 120-day period. And I don't expect you to remember that from this webinar. What I want you to remember is that if you go into this, if you go in this direction, you need to have that Secretary of State, their phone number for their business services, corporate services. You need to have it handy. And you need to call and ask questions and let them walk you through what it is that you need to do to be able to reserve a name. All right, let's go to the next slide. Here's a few things I need you to note. You need to check to see that every section of your document has been completed, including addresses. Now, a lot of times we're a home-based business and we don't want everyone to know what our home address is. So maybe we go up and get a post office box to use for business purposes. Well, that's fine for business purposes, but it's not fine for the address of the registered agent. There are attorneys and there are companies who will act as your registered agent, and they give them their address. But that's going to call just know that's if that's the option you want to use, there will be a fee associated with that from that registered agent. Okay. Incomplete documents cannot be approved and they're going to be returned to you for correction. Again, it's going to slow down the process. If the separate franchise tax contact information form is not complete and your annual franchise tax report or your annual report is sent out, it may not reach you, which is going to cause the corporation to enter inactive or revoke status, which you don't want. You don't want that to happen because there's a card or forms floating around in the mail that didn't find you. So those addresses are very important. And then this is the other thing you need to know. Those franchise taxes, that's the $150 that you pay every year to keep that LLC or that company in good standing. It's $150 for LLC. That's the one I'm most commonly used by the entrepreneurs I work with. That could change at any time, okay? So if it's $155 next year and you say, well, Janelle told me it was $150, they're going to say, we don't even know who Janelle is. It's $155. Send us your check, okay? So that annual franchise tax, it's going to continue to accrue, even if it's not paid until the business is dissolved or withdrawn formally. And there are documents out there on the Secretary of State's website for withdrawing or dissolving an LLC if you decide that you're going a different direction. Maybe you decide a business wasn't such a good idea after all. You need to cancel it all out, get it settled with the Secretary of State is one of the things that you do in that process. That's not what we're here to talk about, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay. You also need to confirm that all necessary parties have signed the documents. And then let's talk about our young entrepreneurs, because we've got young entrepreneurs and we love young entrepreneurs and we want to encourage entrepreneurship in our young people. But there are some legal things here as well. So we know that if you're under the age of 18, it's legally entering into contracts is not something that's permitted, just kind of in general law. So here's how the state handles this, Secretary of State. The incorporator must usually, don't you love that word, usually, be at least 18 years of age. Okay, but according to one of the acts that's out there, one or more natural persons who are between the ages of 16 and 18 years of age, so they can be involved, but they shall have a person who is at least 21 years of age or older to serve on their behalf as the incorporator or organizer of a corporation or LLC. If you've never looked at the paperwork that you have to fill out to register an LLC, then that may be a little confusing to you. But if you go out there and look at that form, you'll see that there's a place where you put the members, there's a place you put who's the authorized registering agent, and then there's a place to put who's the incorporator or organizer. So then that makes a little more sense why that law is the way it is. So under 16, between 16 and 18, they will let you be a part of one, but at 21 years of age or older has to serve as that incorporator or organizer. Okay. So it's again, this is why we go talk to attorneys to make sure we're doing it right. We don't want something to get revoked on us over the age of someone who's involved in the business. All right. Here's another QR code to look at. Licenses, permits, and taxes. We actually have an ebook on our website, and there's the QR code where you can scan and go to that ebook. It's going to give you a high level, kind of walking you through the process, helping you make sure that you don't skip a step. Okay, so businesses must meet different requirements, and they're set by the city, county, state, and federal governments. So it's not the same from county to county or city to city, even within the same state. Just know that. Some things are, but not everything. In addition, agencies and boards related to specific professions, industries, they are going to regulate many occupations and businesses. And I use the hairdresser one all the time because I say, I can help a hairdresser select where they might want to put their building. I can help them with just determining what price they're going to have to ask to stay in business. I can help them with marketing, all kinds of things. But you would not want to hand me a pair of scissors and sit down in the chair and spin yourself around and just say, go to cutting. And not only would you not be pleased with the result, it would be illegal for me to do that and charge you for it. Okay. So that's a very specific profession or industry that has its own regulations. So you have to make sure that the business or job function you perform is properly licensed by the appropriate regulatory agency. I'll get it out in a minute. Because of the time, fees, and red tape involved, obtaining licenses and permits and figuring out tax requirements will likely be the last steps you take before opening your business. But you need to go ahead and determine what you must do to operate safely and illegally. Because if you're wanting to run, for example, a beauty shop, that's not a license that you can go and just obtain over a couple of weeks. You've got to go to school to do that. Okay. Now, if we're talking about something that's a zoning issue, you don't want to buy a building and get ready to start putting in your business and then find out, oh dear, the occupation limit on this building is too small, or I don't have room to put handicap parking, or I now got to invest an extra big chunk of change to put in a fire suppression system. So my personal opinion, I would start finding that stuff out sooner rather than later. You just don't want to get caught a couple of months before you're ready to go into business and find out, uh-oh, there's something that we all know that registrations, some of them are quick, but most of them are not. You don't want to find out that there was a whole process. I actually had a client who, from down here in Southwest Arkansas, she went and actually sat in the office that she was needing to get, I think it was Department of Health. She was needing to get them to approve something for her. And she tried over the phone and tried to push them along and tried over the phone, and she kept getting delayed. So she finally just went and sat in their office until they got her the paperwork she needed. So you cannot make any assumption that something's going to make a fast turnaround for you, even in this age of technology. You cannot expect a fast turnaround just because you could get one. So leave yourself plenty of time to look into that facet of your business. You can use this free ebook, that QR code. I think I've left it up there long enough. You should have been able to scan it. If you refer to the license permit tax requirements on page 27 of that, you'll see topics like your business license. Every community can be different on this. You'll see things covered like a home-based business. Now here's my little thing on a home-based business. If your home-based business does not bring the public to your door, okay? So say for example, you're running a drop shipping business from your home. Okay. And there's nobody coming to your house to pick up packages. There's nobody coming to your house to drop off packages. Or, for example, maybe you're doing marketing, you're a graphic designer, and you're doing that from your home. And everything's emailed out. Typically, those home-based businesses, you can do them wherever your home is. Here's the other side of that. If you decide to open up a boutique, just a little building in your backyard, and I'm just going to carry this real specialized type of garment that maybe only the people in my church are interested in, or only the people who play a certain sport that my child's into, or maybe just the cheerleaders are interested in. So I don't need a location uptown. This is going to be for my little niche market that I'm selling to. If that is bringing vehicles to your house, and that is bringing vehicles that are parking in front of your neighbor's house, and they're blocking your neighbor's driveway, and they're up and down the road where fire trucks now can't get in, and where police, those public services like that cannot access the homes in the neighborhood, that's a problem. And that's why some areas are zoned for residential and others are zoned for commercial. So you need to know, what does your city say? Most of the counties here in Southwest Arkansas don't have additional rules that they impose. So if you're out of city limits, you're generally okay on that type of a thing. But how about we find out that before we invest in buying a building and getting the electric hooked up to it and getting the water hooked up to it, and then find out we can't have one there. Okay. I don't want you wasting money or sending money out the door in a way like that that's going to end up coming back and not be wisely invested, is why I'm mentioning this. So you do need to know, if you're thinking about doing a home-based business, what the requirements are, regulations are for your town or your county, wherever you're at. There's also the EIN number here. It talks about that. Listen, do not pay somebody to get you an EIN. If you want to work with an attorney to do all of your setup and they charge you for that, well, that's one thing. But I'm talking about, don't go out on the internet and end up on a website where they're asking you to pay 250 bucks, 500 bucks, whatever, to file your EIN. Your EIN is free. You just have to make sure you're on the right website. My clients, when they're at this point and they're ready to file their EIN, I send them the link so that they know that they're at the legitimate IRS website because you may not know this, but to get an EIN, you have to give them your social security number. You're giving them things like your date of birth, all that personal information to get that EIN. And you do not want that going to someone that you thought you were on the IRS website and you have no idea who you just gave $250 with. I'll tell you the story of a client because I know she would be more than happy for me to share it with you so you don't end up in the same situation. She went out on one of these websites and she and I had not talked about the EIN. She wasn't quite ready to that. She wasn't to that point. And she actually was really proud of herself for taking the initiative to kind of jump ahead and go get her EIN on her own. So she goes out to this website and she starts filling out the information. And I believe they were going to charge her 400 bucks, something like that. While she is on the website and she has put some information in, she gets a phone call from a random person and she answers it. And they tell her, look, I can do it for you for $250 and you won't have to pay the $400 to file this. And she said she thought that was odd. And so but she said, all right, well, I'll take the savings. She didn't have a lot of money to just waste. She didn't have it to waste when it was free. That's what made the whole situation so annoying to me was that she didn't have this money to give. So she lets this person do it. So she thinks, all right, I saved some money. Instead of $400, it's $250. And then she comes in to talk to me. And I said, oh dear. So we ended up going out and finding all the places we could go to block use of, so that no one could start taking out credit cards in her name. We put all the flags out there to all the government agencies, all the credit reporting agencies that, hey, our identity may have been compromised. It was a whole hassle that you as folks beginning business, you got enough on your plate. You don't need the hassle of being concerned that somebody is now going to steal your identity, nor do you need to be writing checks, sending money to people who, if they're doing something for you that's free and they're just some anonymous person who's just trying to get over on people who don't know better. They don't, she had no idea that this wasn't something that she was going to have to pay for. So I'm telling you here and now, you don't have to pay for an EIN. Okay. Health permits. If you're doing something related to food service or health, you're going to have those things that you're going to need. Business owners or workers, they may need to be bonded, like janitors and contractors. This could be something that you might need. There's also the new federal law that's requiring businesses to register with the BOI. And I don't know if you've been following this. It's on and then it's off, and then it's on and then it's changed and it's extended. But just know that the BOI is with the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. You can learn more at FinCEN, FINCEN .gov/boy. And if I can throw that into the chat, hang on just a second, I will throw that in. It's and then it just took me off the page where I can see it. FinCEN. Get that to you. Where's my chat? FinCEN.boi/gov. I'm going to make sure one more time that I've put that in there right, because I always like to double check. And I put the one part before the other, gov/boi. Okay, that website is in the chat for you. So if you want to jot that down, you will now have it. Okay. Let's move to the next slide. Here are two important websites as you move forward. So on the left is the correct place to go get your EIN. This takes you directly to the IRS website. It starts off with a whole Q&A section. So if you're going to have to answer some questions and submit the application. If it's approved, they're going to issue you your EIN immediately online. Again, beware of websites that charge for an EIN. You never have to pay a fee for an EIN. What you're going to need. You're going to need your business entity type. And when I say that, a lot of people are like, what on earth are you talking about? Because that's not something we hear about except kind of in this scenario. So we'll get into that in just a second. And then you'll need the Social Security number or taxpayer ID number of the responsible party in control of your business or organization. So if you're kind of doing a mom and pop type business, you're going to need your Social Security number. Okay. The other site here on the right-hand side is the NACE code, and this is where you're going to go out and find that industry type, that business, well, your business entity type. I'm sorry, that's like if you're an LLC or sole proprietor or a C Corp, B Corp, whatever, you will need that. On the right-hand side is your NACE code. This is your industry type. Sorry, got the cart before the horse there for just a second. This is where you're going to go, and as you begin to file required tax documents, it stands for the North American Industry Classification System. All right, and they shorten it down and call it the NACE. That's the way I've heard it called, the NACE code. It's the standard that's used by the federal statistical agencies in classifying business establishments for the purpose of collecting, analyzing, and publishing statistical data that's related to the United States business economy. So on this site, you put in a keyword for your business type, and it'll pull you up the associated NACE codes, and then you select the one that best fits your business. And this is something where if you wanted to get an attorney's opinion or someone else's opinion, it could be valuable, but it's also something that you may simply be able to do yourself if you're in a very cut and dry. Every once in a while, I'll have someone come in that's doing something really unique that's kind of falls in between two industries, and those can be challenging. So if it's cut and dry, you should be able to do this yourself. And if it takes a little more digging, you may have to bring in another professional to kind of help you out. So let's talk about some tax requirements. And I see our time is quickly flying by, so I'm going to go a little bit quicker through some of this. You need to find out which taxes are applicable to your business. And if you're not in compliance, the IRS or the Arkansas Department of Finance Administration, they can close your business and you're going to owe back taxes, potentially interest and penalty charges. So I don't think I have to tell you folks how important it is to make sure you're doing the right tax requirements and that there will be tax requirements. So the Department of Finance Administration and the IRS, they distribute packets out to new businesses. They contact them by calling or visiting their offices. The contact information is included in that license, permit, and tax requirements section of the new business guide that I shared with you earlier. So you need to check what products and services are subject to sales tax and keep records so that you can show the taxable sales dollars in case you are audited by the state. You're responsible for paying use and sales tax on products you buy that the seller does not charge sales tax on, and forms are filed periodically with the Arkansas Department of Finance Administration Sales and Use Tax Division. And this was one of my jobs when I worked in the corporation, private industry corporation. Every month I had to go around and look at invoices and find out who purchased something. And there was a time when Amazon didn't charge for taxes. They didn't put your tax charge on there. And that's changed since I left that job. But we would have to go pull all those charges that were on everybody's P cards and find which ones we had not been charged tax for, that were maybe pens that we bought from Rhode Island, and Rhode Island didn't collect Arkansas sales tax. So we had to declare those and the amount and pay the sales tax that we were responsible for, send that to the state. So just understand this is not just income taxes, okay? You could have a business that's going along and you think, okay, all I have to worry about is income tax because I don't buy and resell anything. I'm not a retail. I don't have folks just walking in my door, and I'm not doing cash register receipts, so forth and so on. But there are taxes you are responsible for. Okay. So you need to know what these are. Now, one of the places that you register, and they have done some work here in the last couple of years to try to consolidate some of this. It's the Arkansas Taxpayer Access Point. And if you hear someone refer to something called ATAP, this is what they're talking about in the state of Arkansas. This slide tells you what you're going to need. All right. You'll have to create a logon. You're going to need your EIN number. That's why I've already given you where you go do that. Then you're going to need your NACE code. I've already given where you go do that. You're going to need a name, address, phone number, email, social security number of each owner, partner, or corporate officer in the business. You had to put a lot of that in when you did your LLC paperwork with Secretary of State, so you should have that. Once you had all that, you should have gone to the bank and created a checking account. So they're also going to need the bank account where you're going to be paying these taxes out of. They're also going to use that to take your application fee out of. I'm sure that, I don't know, I haven't gone in there and checked, but I feel like you can change that bank account number as needed. So just know on day one, you do have to have a bank account where you can pay the application fee by ACH debit. And then you have to know the business location address. And if it's separate, you have to have that mailing address. If it's two different addresses, you need to be sure you have them both. That's what you need to do it. Sales and use tax, you're doing that if you've purchased inventory, fixtures, or equipment of an established business. You're going to need the name and account ID of the former business and a copy of the bill of sale. Do you hear me saying how complicated that gets? If you're buying a business, you're going to want an attorney involved and an accountant involved to help with gathering this. If your business sells or serves an alcoholic beverage, you're going to have your alcohol beverage control permit number. That's the ABC permit number at this point when you're setting up with ATAP. If you're leasing your business property, you're going to need to have a copy of your lease agreement to be able to move forward through registering in ATAP. If you're operating a business from your private residence, you're going to have a copy of your city business license. And remember, we talked about that in that booklet, that e-booklet we've got. That talks about all the things you need to go take care of as you're starting. If you're required to pay motor fuel tax, you're going to need a DUNS number. Now, we work with a group called Apex to help you get registered to get your DUNS number for free. So if you contact us, if you're one of our clients, we send you over there to them. And that's with the University of Arkansas Cooperative Extension Agent, I believe, is the group that they're kind of umbrellaed up under. But there is assistance to help you get your DUNS number. If you previously had a motor fuel tax license in Arkansas, you need your previous license number. If you're acquiring an existing business that held a motor fuel tax license, you're going to need the name and account of the acquired company. Things like you're going to have the estimated number of gallons of gasoline and diesel you expect to report. There's also these little specifications like this are the same for natural gas severance tax and the beer, liquor, wine tax. So just know that as you get into this, I've given you this list of what you will need. That's the basics of what you will need. If you're going to have to do some of these others, you're going to have to gather more documentation. Okay. So with a comment on documentation, let's talk about record keeping. This is just some record keeping 101 that I want to cover with you right quickly before we wind up today. You want to record all that income. You want to maintain all of your business expenses that you're incurring. Keep a schedule of your business assets that shows the purchase date, the purchase price, the serial and model numbers. Your accountant will thank you. Maintain business records for a minimum of 3 years. Personally, I like to go more, but that's just the side of caution I walk on. In some cases, of course, you'll keep it indefinitely or permanently. For example, a car title, a deed to land or something. You won't shred that stuff. To set up an accounting system, a bookkeeping system that works best for your business, reach out to your accountant. Sometimes they can recommend a system that maybe they're very familiar with, so that if you're working in it and you hit a hiccup, they might be able to help you talk you through some correcting entry you might need to make. They also might be able to upload reports easily out of a system that they are familiar with to help your tax preparation go more seamlessly. So talk to your accountant about what's the best bookkeeping system. And, same for point of sale systems. Know what features you're going to really need. Talk to other people in the same type of businesses, find out what they use. If retail businesses really aren't all that different. So it doesn't have to be someone who's selling the exact same items that you're selling, but ask them, which one are you using? There's Square, there's Clover, there's all these different ones, and find out what features they like or don't like about them. And then this mentions to regularly visit the IRS website. And I'm gonna tell y'all something. That stuff can be very complicated slash complex slash make your eyes roll up in the back of your head. So this is why we have these wonderful people, these geniuses called accountants and CPAs. So you could go out there and look, but it doesn't take, and look, my minor is accounting. That's what I study, but it doesn't take me long looking at that stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I need an interpreter because I'm getting all y'all are confusing me. I looked at this one site and it said this, and I looked over here at this other site and it seemed to go the whole different direction. So again, but stay plugged in. You need to know what your tax obligations are. You need to know before you make a decision to buy a big expensive piece of equipment. Would it be better for me to wait till after the beginning of the year to do it, or do I want to try to get into it, get it purchased before the end of this year? That's more advantageous to me. So keep that your bookkeeper, your accountant on speed dial. You want one that's going to be responsive to you. So make sure that you've got that one that you can work well with and that you trust to help guide you through this. Okay. Here's a couple of other things. We've already mentioned not commingling your personal money with your business money. Get to know that loan officer before you need money. When you're in there opening the checking account, it's a good time to go over and visit with a commercial loan officer and just say, hey, um, just wanted you to know I'm opening a business, and at this point in time, I'm not looking for any loans, but here's what I'm doing, and I'd love to work with your bank. I'm over here to introduce myself, get to know you, and at the time we decide that we're ready to grow the business, we'll be coming back and yada, yada, yada. Okay. Um, and if you borrow money, if you are borrowing money, keep that loan officer informed. They are your friend. Sometimes they have to give you hard information that you don't like to hear, but you need them to be your friend and not feel like you're going to the principal's office like when you were in school. Don't wait till it gets to that point to go in and talk to the loan officer. If you see something on the horizon that may cause you a hiccup in making a loan payment or something, get to talking to them at that point because they may be able to help you navigate with another product they offer, or they've got several options that they might be able to help you with if they get in, if you bring them in soon enough that they can help you. Okay. Insurance, I generally tell my clients reach out to whoever you have your regular insurance with, because my thinking is that you would have a relationship with this person. You would have some, at least some type of a trust in them. Ask them if they offer the coverages you're going to be needing. Then you can go out and find out some competitive pricing other places if you're not happy with what they offer. And if they don't offer what you need, and here's a list of some things you may need, ask them. Look, insurance is their world, right? So ask them where they would recommend you going and getting the type of policy you need. That's their world. They're the experts. Use them. And then personnel. If you're getting ready to hire somebody, you've got to know employment laws. You've got to know the difference between an employee and an independent contractor, so you don't have some surprise big payment that you've got to make in the future because you had somebody classified wrong. You want to know proper practices for interviewing, hiring, and firing. These are things you want to do before day one. Looking at developing that personnel manual or employee handbook. And then this is one tip that I give people quite often is to consider using employment or temp agencies. Now, people will look at these and say, yeah, but I could hire them myself for $11. And if I hire them from a temp agency, I'm having to pay $16. Well, let me tell you one advantage of that. If they're not working out, you can tell the temp agency, don't send me Jane Doe again. I need a different, I need Beth Lamb to come in instead of Jane Doe. Send me somebody else to fill that role, and you don't have near the paperwork that you have to deal with. You don't have to deal with those hard conversations with that employee. They just send you the next person until you find one that's a good fit. So do consider them, because one of the biggest costs for a business is training, is acquiring help, training the help, retaining the help, all that's involved in that. You wouldn't have to do for that extra $4, $5, $6 that you have to pay per hour. And maybe you just need someone to come in the busy seasons. An employment or temp agency is a great thing to consider for that. we do have a resource that can help you, and here's the key QR code for that. It's hiring your first employee. It's another free ebook that we have out there. It includes legal requirements for hiring employees, how to create a job description and post a job opening, how to screen and interview candidates, payroll taxes and benefits, employment laws and regulations, and tips for managing your first employee. Again, a lot of HR stuff though is legal. So we can only go down this road so far with you. All right. So just understand that there will come a point that if you're working with our office, we'll have to say, okay, you need to go talk to a business attorney about this. One other note, if you are a home-based business, and there's a lot of them out there. Again, just to remind you, zoning laws and regulations, you need to know them for your location and type of business. You need to talk to your CPA about the tax advantages or disadvantages of using your home. What can you write off? You need to look at that insurance coverage other than homeowner or renter's policy. So I had a home-based business for a while, and what I was doing was some sewing for a company. It was freelance that I was doing, kind of independent contractor work. Had I caught my house on fire with that sewing machine, would my homeowners have covered it? So those are the type of things you need to know. Okay. Mail delivery, your home versus post office box. Some of the post office advantages, customers and suppliers don't have to have your home address. If you future you move out of the home, it won't disrupt your mail delivery, and it can give a greater perception of professionalism. So you might consider also renting a UPS store box if there's one in your area. This will give you a street address, and you can sign for your packages. So they sign for them, but somebody is signing for your packages. So just consider that for a home-based business. And then on the telephone services. So this is something that changes as technology changes. So if you advertise your home telephone number for your business, technically you should carry a business service, which is a different plan with the service providers generally. So you can obtain a free Google Voice phone number that forwards to your cell phone. There are other services similar to this. There's usually a charge or monthly fee. But you know how substantial those are. You just have to kind of look into them. Examples are Ooma, OOMA. That's how that's spelled. And then Ring Central is another one. This allows you to move anywhere in the world, but still keep the same phone number. That's another advantage of that. And you can sometimes convert your residential service to a commercial line and use that same telephone number. However, my understanding is you cannot convert the commercial back to the residential service. So you would not be able to retain the same phone number for home use if you cancel the commercial service later. So that's things to look into. An alternative is to have two telephone numbers on existing wiring into your home. A second number has a personal, you see how complicated this is sounding? The second number has a personalized ring, so you can distinguish between business calls and personal ones. Just know that is an option. And then I'm going to go back to that insurance one more time, and I'm going to caution you, business operations are not covered in the normal homeowner renter policy, so talk to your agent. This would impact any inventory loss that could be caused by fire, flood, theft, anything like that. So make sure that you're talking to your insurance agent if you are a home-based business. Okay, it's 1 o'clock, so I'm wrapping up on the dot. If you're interested in talking to a consultant, here's how you can get in touch with our office specifically. You see that asbtdc.org at the bottom. You can find our other state offices at that location and register for the one that is in your area. You can follow us for more resources and training. Here's our Facebook page and our Instagram. And we want to give a special shout out to Camden Accelerated Business Services for supporting this, for being our sponsor for this webinar. And we hope that you have found it valuable. I do notice that I have a question in the chat. So if you can hang around, we will take a look at those. Let me get over there to that. All right, so let's just get back up to the top right quick on these questions. If I can get my screen to scroll and make sure that I see them all. I've got one of these touch screens, and sometimes it likes to be touched and sometimes it doesn't. So here's a question. As a sole proprietor, is there value in getting an EIN instead of operating under your Social Security number? Here's my response on that. Number one, the EIN is free. So it's not going to cost you anything. So it's not like it's cost prohibitive. Number two, if you don't have an EIN, that means that you have to use your Social Security number on every document, every legal document that's in relation to your business. Anytime that you put your Social Security number out into the universe, there's a chance of identity theft. So my personal opinion is get the EIN and use it to, if anything, to provide a layer of protection between theft, crooks and your Social Security number for that identity theft piece. So that's my thought on it. You can certainly ask your accountant what they think, and you can tell them I said that. Tell them that this lady that was talking on this webinar, she said that I might want it so that I didn't have to send my Social Security number out there into the world as often, and see what they say. And then there's a question that's in here that is going to be, yeah, this is a loaded question. She says it may be a loaded question, but what is the max percentage or amount business taxes can be increased year over year? I imagine you would have a better chance of getting a response from that from maybe somebody in the legislature, because to my understanding, they can change that based on what they want to do. So those tax schedules come out, and we're kind of at the mercy of what they decide in the legislative branch. So to my knowledge, there's not a maximum percentage that it can go up. All right. Um, I've got another one. I've had my LLC and EIN for more than a year. I've learned, oh, okay. Um, yes, we will. Do you have I tell you what, for Miss Gentry, I have got your email address, and I'll just reach out to you after this webinar, and we'll get in touch that way. Does that sound like that would work? Any other questions anybody wants to throw out there? I know it's a lot of information to absorb. Okay, I'm starting a bookkeeping business, and I know that you mentioned the importance of having a bookkeeper. Is it appropriate for me to advertise here and leave my email for anyone who is interested? I hope this is okay. Hey, look, I appreciate you asking. So, I don't have a problem with you putting it out there. It's just to let everyone know this is a participant, and she's opening a business, and so she's going to throw her contact information out here in the chat, and I will leave the webinar active long enough that if you want to grab her information and reach out to her for a conversation, that's entirely up to you. Look, if we were in person, you would be able to hand out business cards to other folks here. So we're just going to look at it that way. This is one of the participants is gonna throw out some information that would be on her business card. So if anyone's interested in following up with her, go right ahead. Any other questions? Okay, well, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your questions. And like I said, I'm going to leave it active long enough in case this participant wants to put her stuff out there for everyone to look at. And other than that, I'm going to conclude the webinar by canceling my audio out so that there's not any more talking going on, but where you guys can still talk in the chat for a little bit if you would like. Thank you again, and y'all have a great day.